Denzel and Michael B. Jordan together at last. Let's talk about A Journal for Jordan. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watch or Pass. I'm here to talk to you about A Journal for Jordan, which is coming to theaters on December 25th, 2021. It's Denzel Washington's directorial debut, and it stars Michael B. Jordan and Chanté Adams as a very different couple and a very kind of, I don't know, modern couple, if you want to say that. It's an interesting film. It has a ton of emotion. My hot take is there's a lot to like about this movie. I liked the kind of, I don't know, imperfect relationship between the two. I like the characters. I like the realistic military portrayal. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the story, some things I liked about it, some things I didn't love. There will be some spoilers in this. There aren't going to be a ton. I'm not going to do a ton of spoilers for this one, but there will be some spoilers. So if you don't want to know anything about the film, it's based on a true story. It's kind of based on a true person and true events. You might have already heard about it, but if you don't want to know anything about it, you want to go in blind, turn this off and come back after you've seen the film so you can hear my thoughts. But if you want to know more, let's keep going. So A Journal for Jordan kind of chronicles the life of Dana, played by Chanté Adams, and her relationship with Charles, played by Michael B. Jordan. They have a very unlikely relationship. They are very different people, but they come together in this kind of beautiful and messy romance, love that kind of spans a long time because Charles is in the military. So he is based elsewhere and can only come up to New York occasionally to visit Dana. But, you know, despite their differences and despite the distance, they do fall in love. They have this beautiful... So despite their differences, despite the distance, they do fall in love. And eventually Dana gets pregnant and their son is Jordan. And Charles ends up being deployed to Iraq. And while he's there, he writes in this journal that Dana gave him for their son. Their son wasn't born when Charles left. And so she wanted him to give him this journal so he could write down thoughts and, you know, advice for their son while he was out there. He wrote all these great pieces of advice for their son. And unfortunately, he was killed in action while he was in Iraq. And so among the possessions that were sent back was this journal. And so the film is kind of about Dana and Charles's life, their romance, and then also eventually the journal goes to Jordan, their son, and then it becomes about him exploring these lessons and exploring their father. It's an interesting story. I didn't love the storytelling, but there's a lot to love about this movie. So things I liked about this movie. The first is Michael B. Jordan. I mean, look, I'm a big Michael B. Jordan fan. I think everyone is probably a big Michael B. Jordan fan. He's a fantastic actor. And his character in this film was a very interesting one. There's a very quirky character. I guess it's because it's based on First Sergeant King. I guess First Sergeant King had a lot of very quirky interests. So I loved how his character was likable and sweet, but sometimes, you know, he seemed a little too good to be true. And he also seemed to have a very different life mentality and a very different kind of way of living than the other people in the movie. He was very straight and edge. He listened to old music. He kind of had corny jokes. He had a military mindset, and I loved how Michael B. Jordan kind of embodied this character. The second thing I love are the military aspects of this film. So First Sergeant King is obviously in the military, and there are many instances in this film where kind of the military life and the civilian life collide in very messy ways because a military life is difficult and it's tough for them to have a relationship, and they make it work. But I really did enjoy kind of how the storytelling was told, how conflicted First Sergeant King was because of his love for her, but also his duty to the military and his men. And to be clear, he didn't like go AWOL or anything, but he had the kind of personal conviction that these were his men and he had to watch out for them. So even if he was leaving for a little bit of time, he was worried that things might come up. And there was one instance in the film when he was supposed to go meet Dana and he couldn't because one of his men had a kid and he was freaking out because he was a young soldier having a kid and wasn't sure what to do in life. And so he kind of had to counsel him. He had to be kind of a surrogate father for his men while also trying to be a good partner and eventually father for his son. And so his conflicting personality, the difficulty of living that life, I really like seeing. And then eventually the film does have scenes that were set in Iraq. And I thought those were very well done as well, to see kind of the contrast between civilian life and kind of the military deployed life. I thought those were all very well done. And the last thing I love is the overall message. I mean, I liked how the film celebrates this person and celebrated kind of his advice, because he had some very good advice, some very I don't know, old school advice, but also a little bit progressive. Like I said, his character was interesting because it was a very traditional, you know, be strong, take care of your body, respect women. But then there was also a lot of, I don't know, more progressive thoughts where he was like, it's okay to cry, it's okay to show emotion. Sometimes you need to do that to feel better. And I liked how nuanced the lessons were because they felt like it's just a good collection of thoughts and advice for any young man, and particularly for Jordan, who was trying to get an understanding of his father, since he really never knew him. And so I loved that aspect as well. Things I didn't love as much about this movie. The first is the slow pace. I mean, so the movie is fairly slow. It feels like a long movie, and that's because it is. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes, but the plot doesn't really progress with much urgency. And I think it also didn't help that the story kind of jumped around a little bit. I kind of wish it would have just been more of a linear storytelling. And there was a general linear trend, but the movie would jump to different times occasionally to highlight new events, to highlight things that were happening. And I guess this was supposed to give you kind of an idea of what their life was after First Sergeant King. But I think it would have been a better storytelling to just go linear, start with a relationship. You could have some foreshadowing at the start, which the film did, and then go back to the beginning, have a more linear storytelling. I think that would have been better because it would have helped you get a better emotional connection with the characters, I think. And maybe they could have also inserted a little bit more background on the characters. I feel like there were some characters that we just didn't hear much about. The second thing I did not love is the dialogue was kind of hit or miss. There was some corny dialogue. There were some lines that just, they felt a little bit too Hollywood, I guess, too cheesy, which is weird because this relationship did feel messy and a little more real than most Hollywood relationships are. And I don't know if the dialogue was maybe that's how they communicated, and then in that case, I guess it's great that they're being more accurate. But there were some lines that felt a little corny. There were some lines that felt a little too perfect. It felt like it could have been a little tightened up. Now, to be fair, there was a decent amount of good dialogue as well. It's not like the whole movie was love story one-liners, but the corny dialogue did kind of stand out. And the last thing I did not love is I wanted some more background on some of the characters. Like specifically, I wanted more background on Charles's character. He had some very interesting quirks that they kind of brought up, but I don't feel like we got a full understanding of why. Like, why did he listen to these old records? Why did he have these specific character quirks? Where did he learn to paint? I wanted to know more about that kind of stuff. And I felt like we didn't hear anything about that. And then also there was this whole storyline of him having a daughter that we never saw. And I guess that's because this is a journal for Jordan that focuses on his son. But it felt weird when they mentioned the rest of his family. It was weird when they mentioned his other family earlier, and then you never met them, you never saw them. They were just almost like they were out of the picture, except they were brought up occasionally through dialogue. But it felt like a movie that kind of focuses so much on family and is so family oriented. They should have had some more instances of the rest of the family, but I guess maybe they were cut for time purposes. Maybe that's just how the story was. Again, this is based on a true story, so I'm not sure what was in there for the movie and what was in there for real life. I guess it was some combination of the two. Like specifically, there was a scene that they called out at the end. Like the movie was honest about this, which I did like, but they set a scene in Arlington, and at the end they're like, this was set for dramatic purposes. The real location would have been, I think it was somewhere in Ohio. So, uh, but clearly they took some Hollywood type liberties with the story, and so in that instance, why not take a few more and really flesh out these characters? But again, I know it's difficult to balance when you have something based on a true story and based on real characters, and maybe you don't want to change it too much. So I understand that as well. But without a little more background, the movie felt like it had these holes in it that just didn't get filled by the end. So that's a journal for Jordan. Like I said, it has a lot to like. It's got some good characters, it's got some good lessons, and a really good portrayal of the military life. And so it's coming Christmas Day 2021. So you can check it out then in theaters if you're comfortable. If maybe you're get done with presents, you want to go see a family movie, this is not a bad choice. So thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.